over black supremacy. And with this particular video, I want to talk about your perception being filtered through the lens of your phantom self. And I talked about earlier how your phantom self must die. I talked about that. It's the old you that you believe still exists, that you're attached to. It was created by your experiences that you walk through unconsciously. It was created by your indoctrination, how you were programmed and educated. This gave you a phantom self, something that you're not, but has become a point of reference for you as you. It's how most people saw you. It's how everybody's perception of you equals out into a common denominator that you call yourself. And all along in your unconscious state, that has basically been you. Because you weren't self-created. You didn't know your limits or how unlimited you were as a creative being, at essence. That you were an infinite creator that could manifest your own reality. So you accept realities that were casted upon you, that were projected on you, that represented the feelings and the thoughts and energies of those you've come amongst, and how you have reacted and responded to their perception. And this gave you a self. It's a phantom self. But when you become conscious, that self dies. Because you're no longer living as someone else's projection anymore. You're no longer living inside of the limits of collective consciousness. You become more self-defined, self-explored, self-evolved, and self-awakened. You become a new being that is self-aware and self-conscious of itself. No longer the phantom entity no more that you've lived most of your life as. You won't be that entity anymore. That will die, will fade like a hologram. It cannot continue to exist. But even after that dies, a part of you is still attached to it because that's all that you knew yourself as. That's all that you knew as you. And everybody who knew you as that, and they related to that. They related to that entity and build up emotional bonds and a connection to. So you constantly represented that over and over and over again. That is your matrix self, your virtual self. Constantly representing it, just like a profile on your social media. It's not you change, but you can't update your social media status fast enough to you. And that's what your phantom self is. In the video before this one, I talked about going beyond your phantom self, letting the phantom self die and giving up your attachment or your distractions to that. With this video, I want to talk about how your phantom self filters your perception to allow you to continue to exist in the old paradigm, even though you've changed. Let me give an example. You hung out with some people in high school, some people in the past. People in your neighborhood. But as you continue to get older and grow and generate and attract new circles to you, everybody you meet remind you of somebody you already know. And the people who kept coming into your life were like space fillers. They all filled up the space for somebody who left, like the law of substitution or the law of compensation. The same energies of those people that you knew in the past show back up in your life, at least you believe. Like, why do you remind me of my homie? You know what I'm saying? Back from Chicago. You know, why do you remind me of my homie back from Fort Lauderdale or West Palm Beach? Why you remind me my homie from Dakota? At least you believe that they're in the likeness and image of people you already knew. And that people have to fit into this framework or template of people you already knew. What is that framework and that template? That is the filter, the perceptual filter of your phantom self. Not only does in your attachment to your phantom self, do you want to be the same and be consistent with who you've always been or thought yourself to be, you also force those around you to fit into a certain perceptual framework or a mold where you perceive them the way you've always perceived everyone, and you've perceived their limits and their loyalties and their abilities based on how you've perceived everyone who's come into your space. So you keep recreating the same situations and circumstances in your life through having the same perceptual filter or framework of looking at people in the same way you've always looked at them, from the perspective of your phantom self. So now you're hunted by the ghost of these other profiles, these other archetype personalities that continue to show up in your life that are really ghosts. They're phantoms. They're not real. I want to tell you that everyone that come into your life is an unlimited entity and an unlimited being. They have nothing to do with anyone you've ever met before or anyone you've ever been with before. The only relationship between them and the people you knew before is how you filter them and your interactions through your perceptions. It's through the comparisons that you make and the correlations that you make in order to keep the continuity of your phantom self alive, to maintain the old paradigm, to keep the old paradigm going. So you're recreating and remanifesting old experiences that you had with new people because you attach to that reality that manifested the old ones. You're looking at reality in a filtered way and you wonder why does this keep happening to me? And you think that you're somehow a victim or you're just lucky. Why does this keep showing up for you? Because your perception is filtered in a way to make you react to reality in a way that produces the same result. You're being hunted by your own perceptual paradigm. Your attachment to a certain perception of reality keeps re-hunting you. You refuse to look outside of it. For some people to look outside of their own perceptual framework and to open their mind up to the possibility that is something else there would probably be the most scariest thing that they ever did. They would probably have a heart attack if they just for 1 second decide to look at things outside of their own perceptual matrix that they've had for so long. This perceptual framework dictates that people who come in your life are they going to be A, B, C, D, or E? Because that's the only way you can see them. And you're going to only be a certain way based on them being A, B, C, D, or E. And you're locked into being that. That's your phantom self. And that's your life being filtered through the perception of your phantom self. And you're maintaining a reality when you really live in the realm of infinite possibility, where you can actually create and manifest whatever you desire. It's an infinite amount of things that can occur and manifest in reality that you have to be open to, but you can't if you're locked into a perceptual paradigm that you believe to be truth. You think it's the way things are. You think what you're seeing is concrete and definitive, and it's not. It's just your attachment to a certain perceptual framework, or the only thing that you have known. The only thing that you have ever known is not the truth. It's just all that you've ever known. So at some point, you have to open up your mind and your consciousness to something else. That's when you have a paradigm shift and expand your consciousness to a new reality. Then you can have new experiences. We keep blaming the people outside of us for what we see, and what we see ultimately ends up with what we get. What you see is what you get. And without challenging ourselves to see something else so that we can get something else out of life. Life is not going to change. The physical world is not going to change, but your perception of it can change, which you can act upon it in a way, a radically new and different way, to get a new result out of it. And that will be your revolutionary experience in this world. That will be your matrix revolution that you will have on this physical plane. When you see that your reality is filtered by you, and a lot of times it's filtered by you that ain't even you, because you have not even woke up to yourself. Because when you wake up to who you are the creator, you are the author. You have infinite potential, infinite probability and possibility to create and manifest divinity. If you could but see it. If you could lay aside your preconceived notions and your attachments to being right about what you've always been right about before, that brought about the same result in your life. This is just part one. It's King Noble Black Supremacy.